All right, buckle up for some Hollywood drama because today we're diving deep into a lawsuit that honestly reads like a movie script itself.
Yeah.
We've got excerpts from a legal complaint, and it's juicy.
It is juicy.
Think Blake Lively,
Oh, yeah.
Ryan Reynolds, a movie adaptation of a popular book, and accusations flying every which way.
What I think is so interesting about this case is how it really reveals the inner workings of Hollywood.
Right.
You know, you see how these personal conflicts can become these massive legal battles.
Yeah.
And even major media outlets like the New York Times get caught in the crossfire.
Oh, yeah. It's like a real-life soap opera, but with lawyers instead of love triangles.
Exactly.
And we got it all allegations of extortion, defamation, smear campaigns.
The film at the center of this is an adaptation of Colleen Hoover's novel, It Ends With Us,
Okay.
a story that deals with the very serious topic of domestic violence.
Right.
Justin Baldoni, who's known for his advocacy for women's rights, was set to direct and co-star in the film with Blake Lively in the lead role.
Hmm.
And, of course, her husband, Ryan Reynolds, was involved throughout the production, supporting his wife.
So you've got a popular book, a socially conscious director, and a star-studded cast.
Yeah.
Seems like a recipe for success on paper.
Yeah.
So where do things go wrong?
Well, according to the complaint, Lively wasn't just acting in this movie. She was
Yeah.
also very involved behind the scenes.
Okay.
She secured an executive producer credit, and she was really using her influence to push for changes to things like wardrobe and the script.
Interesting. So she was more than just the leading lady.
Yeah.
She wanted a say in the creative process.
Yeah.
What were some of the specific changes that she was pushing for?
One example that stands out is Lively's reported dissatisfaction with the initial wardrobe choices.
Okay.
She actually had a pretty tense exchange with Baldoni about it, which she later characterized as an outburst in her complaint.
Okay.
She also advocated for quite a few script rewrites, which created some friction with the producers and the studio.
So she was really asserting her creative vision.
Yeah.
Do we know why she was so insistent on these changes? Was it purely artistic differences, or was there something else going on?
That's where things get a bit more complicated.
Okay.
The lawsuit seems to suggest that Lively's demands went beyond typical creative differences. For instance, after a break in production, she gave a list of conditions for her return to filming.
Uh-huh.
And one of those was a demand for the constant presence of an intimacy coordinator,
Oh, okay.
even though one was already hired and on set.
That's interesting. Why insist on something that's already in place? A little odd.
And that's not the only instance where Lively's actions seem to contradict her stated concerns.
Okay.
The complaint also highlights a situation where Lively herself was directing a scene,
Interesting.
and she made Baldoni uncomfortable with her requests.
Okay.
This was during the filming of a romance montage,
Uh-huh.
and she reportedly insisted on having the characters continuously kissing, even when Baldoni tried to explain that it wouldn't really work for the shot.
So it seems like there's this disconnect between her stated concerns about on-set conduct and her own behavior during filming.
Right.
It really makes you question what her true motivations were.
Yeah, that's a question the court's going to have to grapple with.
Yeah.
The lawsuit also claims that Lively leveraged her position and Reynolds' influence to gain a lot of control over the editing process during post-production.
Okay.
She demanded access to all the raw footage and the early cuts of the film, and eventually got Sony to actually finance a separate cut of the film under her direction.
Wait, so there were two versions of the movie?
Yeah.
How is that even possible?
Well, according to the complaint, Sony felt pressured by Lively and feared that she would refuse to promote the film if they didn't accommodate her demands.
Oh.
They were heavily invested in the project and needed her star power for it to be a success.
Right.
So essentially, they gave in to her demands to protect their investment.
Wow. So they caved.
Yeah,
That's fascinating. It really raises some interesting questions about the power dynamics at play here.
absolutely. The situation with the two cuts is just one example of how Lively allegedly used her influence to exert control over the project.
Uh-huh.
It seems like this was a pattern that continued throughout both production and post-production.
So if Lively seemingly got her way on so many aspects of the film, why is she suing?
That's where the allegations of a smear campaign come in.
Okay.
Lively claims that Baldoni orchestrated this whole campaign to damage her reputation,
Okay.
portraying her as difficult to work with and insensitive to the film's delicate subject matter.
So she's saying all the negative press she received during the film's release was Baldoni's doing.
That's her claim.
Wow.
The lawsuit alleges that Baldoni, with the help of his publicist and a former publicist for Wayfarer, use altered text messages and a biased narrative to position himself as the victim in this situation.
Hmm.
Lively even accuses the New York Times of collaborating with Baldoni,
Wow.
alleging that they published an article based on his unverified claims without considering any evidence that might contradict his account.
So we've got Lively claiming Baldoni orchestrated a smear campaign, and Baldoni accusing Lively of essentially taking control of his film.
Yeah.
It seems like both sides are pointing fingers,
Mm-hmm.
which makes it really difficult to figure out what actually happened.
It definitely highlights the challenges of getting to the truth when you have powerful figures and their own narratives clashing.
Yeah.
And for you, the listener, this case shows how important it is to look beyond the headlines and really think about the motivations of the people involved.
It's a good reminder that there's often more to the story than what we initially see, especially in Hollywood.
Yeah.
We need to be critical consumers of information, particularly when it comes to celebrity news and accusations.
Absolutely. And in the next part of our deep dive, we're going to unpack those allegations of a smear campaign and really dig into the evidence Lively is using to support her claims.
Okay.
Buckle up, because it gets pretty wild.
All right. Sounds good. So last time, we were talking about Lively accusing Baldoni of this smear campaign against her. What evidence is she using to back up these pretty serious claims?
Well, a central figure in all of this is Stephanie Jones,
Okay.
who was originally the publicist for both Wayfarer and Baldoni.
Mm-hmm.
But things went south, and she ended up getting let go.
Okay.
And according to the complaint, she then provided Lively with some ammo for her lawsuit.
Sounds like there's a lot of bad blood between Jones and her former clients.
Yeah.
What caused the falling out?
The lawsuit suggests it was a mix of personal conflicts and professional disagreements.
Okay.
Jones was reportedly furious with Wayfarer for choosing to work with Jennifer Abel,
Uh-huh.
who was a former employee of Jones and had recently started her own PR firm.
So professional rivalry and maybe a bit of jealousy.
Yeah, it seems that way.
Okay.
And to make things even more complicated, at the time, Jones was actually dealing with her own negative press.
Mm.
There were articles circulating about her alleged mistreatment of employees.
Oh, wow.
And she was reportedly losing clients.
So she was in a pretty vulnerable position professionally.
Exactly. Yeah. The lawsuit suggests that Jones saw this as a chance to get back at Wayfarer
Okay.
and maybe even improve her own image by siding with Lively and giving her damaging information about Baldoni.
So Jones is a key player in this whole thing.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the stolen cell phone incident.
Okay.
That sounds serious.
Yeah.
What happened there?
When Abel left Jones's firm, JonesWorks, Jones allegedly refused to give Abel her personal cell phone number back,
Really?
even though she needed it to access important accounts and contacts.
Oh.
This meant that Jones still had access to all of Abel's personal information. Text messages, emails, photos, everything.
So Jones was holding Abel's personal information hostage.
Basically.
That's a huge invasion of privacy.
It is. And according to the complaint, it gets even worse.
What do you mean?
They allege that Jones actually shared some of Abel's private messages with the whole office,
Oh my God.
mocking and belittling her.
This sounds more like straight up bullying than a professional disagreement.
Yeah, it's definitely troubling behavior.
So how does all of this connect back to Lively and her lawsuit?
Well, remember, Lively was alleging that Baldoni was behind this smear campaign, targeting her.
Right.
And she needed evidence to support those claims.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where Jones and the whole stolen cell phone thing come in.
Okay.
The lawsuit claims that Jones gave Lively access to a bunch of Abel's text messages and emails,
Mm-hmm.
specifically ones that could be used to paint Baldoni and his team in a negative light.
So Jones was basically feeding Lively information to use against Baldoni.
That's the allegation.
Wow.
Driven by revenge and this desire to protect her own reputation, Jones strategically picked out messages that, when taken out of context, could support Lively's story of a smear campaign.
So these messages could have been twisted to fit a certain narrative.
That's what the Wayfarer parties are saying.
Hmm.
But look at one specific example.
Okay.
Lively claims that there's this text exchange between Baldoni's publicist Melissa Nathan and Abel
Mm-hmm.
that shows them celebrating this negative article about Lively in the Daily Mail. Lively points to a message where Abel supposedly says, "Wow, and you really outdid yourself with this one."
Yeah.
To which Nathan replies, "That's why you hired me, right? I'm the best."
On the surface, that does sound pretty incriminating. It sounds like they're enjoying Lively's bad press.
It does. But the complaint actually offers a different interpretation.
Okay.
They claim that when you look at the full conversation, it becomes clear that they weren't celebrating the negative coverage.
Uh,
They were actually using dark humor and sarcasm to deal with a really difficult situation.
so more like venting to each other.
Yeah, trying to find some humor in a stressful situation.
Interesting.
In the full conversation, Nathan had expressed frustration and disbelief that the article in the Daily Mail was being linked to her PR efforts.
Okay.
And Abel's responses, which Lively's using as proof of a smear campaign, were actually sarcastic replies to Nathan's complaints.
It's amazing how the same information can be interpreted so differently depending on the context.
Exactly. And the complaint argues that this pattern of selective editing and leaving out context is seen throughout the evidence Lively is presenting.
It sounds like this whole situation is less about who's right and who is wrong,
Yeah.
and more about how different people are spinning the same events to fit their own stories.
That's a really good point.
Hmm.
And for you, the listener, it emphasizes the importance of being aware of the potential for bias and manipulation,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you're dealing with information from sources that have their own interests at play.
Right. It's a good reminder to always think about the source and to look for multiple perspectives on any story.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And in the next part of our deep dive, we'll examine those accusations of journalistic malpractice leveled against the New York Times.
Okay.
And we'll think about what this whole case means for the future of Hollywood.
We've spent a lot of time talking about Lively and Baldoni's very different versions of what happened and how Stephanie Jones fits into all of this.
Yeah.
But now let's talk about the New York Times and these accusations of some pretty serious journalistic malpractice.
Yeah. It seems like once the Times got involved, this whole thing went from a behind-the-scenes battle to a very public spectacle.
You're right. Publishing that article really put this conflict in the spotlight.
Yeah.
And now Wayfarer is saying that the Times was more interested in a sensational story than in actually getting to the truth.
The complaint doesn't hold back at all.
No, it doesn't.
It accuses the Times of straight-up abandoning journalistic standards and being complicit in Lively's alleged smear campaign.
Right.
Those are strong accusations.
Yeah.
What evidence do they have to back that up?
Well, they point to a few key things.
Okay.
First, there's the timing of the article.
Okay.
It came out just one day after Lively filed her complaint with the California Civil Rights Department.
Mm.
And Wayfarer is arguing that this timing points to a coordinated effort between Lively and the Times
Okay.
to cause as much damage as possible and try to sway public opinion in her favor.
The timing does seem a little too perfect for Lively.
Yeah, it does.
Like they were waiting for the exact right moment to drop the story. Exactly.
Yeah.
And it gets even more interesting when you look at the article's metadata.
Okay.
Wayfarer is claiming that the timestamps on some of the pictures and files linked to the article show that it was actually put together weeks before Lively even filed her complaint.
So are they saying that the Times had this story ready to go?
Yeah.
Just waiting for Lively to make her move?
That's what they're saying.
Which really makes you question their neutrality.
Right. It seems to contradict their claim that they were just reporting on a breaking news story.
Yeah.
It makes it look like they were actively working with Lively to present a specific narrative.
So we've got the timing and the metadata that raise some red flags.
Right.
But what about the actual content of the article?
Well, Wayfarer has a problem with that, too.
Okay.
They argue that the article is biased towards Lively, and it leaves out important information that contradicts her side of the story. For example, they say that the Times completely failed to address the negative press that Lively herself caused during the film's promotion.
So they're saying that the Times ignored the possibility that Lively's own promotional strategy, which kind of downplayed the serious themes of the film and really focused on her personal brand, could have contributed to the negative reaction.
Exactly. They're arguing that the Times didn't present a balanced perspective. They left out details that would have given a more complete picture of the situation.
That seems like a big miss, especially for a publication like the New York Times.
Right.
I mean, they have a reputation for really thorough reporting and fact-checking.
Yeah.
Wouldn't they have at least double-checked the information Lively gave them?
You would think so, but Wayfarer is arguing that the Times maybe got caught up in the excitement of this Hollywood scandal,
Yeah.
and they abandoned their usual journalistic standards.
So they're saying that the Times just accepted Lively's version of events without really questioning her motivations or considering that she might be manipulating things.
That's their argument.
It makes you think about the responsibility that publications like the New York Times have to be accurate and fair in their reporting. They have a lot of power to shape how the public sees things.
Absolutely. And in this case, the consequences for Wayfarer have been huge.
Yeah.
Their reputations have been hurt, and their careers could be in jeopardy.
It's a reminder that words have power.
For sure.
And even just allegations, when they're shared by someone like the New York Times, can have a lasting impact.
It's pretty sobering. Wayfarer is asking for a significant amount of money in damages from the Times.
Yeah.
They want to send a message about how important journalistic integrity is.
This whole case has definitely made us all think about how the media should cover these kinds of controversies.
Yeah.
But looking beyond the legal battle, what does this all mean for Hollywood going forward?
I think this case highlights the need for more transparency and accountability within the film industry.
Yeah.
We need to deal with those power imbalances that often silence the people working behind the scenes
Right.
and create an environment where everyone feels safe speaking up about any wrongdoing.
It seems like this whole mess could have been avoided if there were better ways for people to voice their concerns and hold those in power responsible.
I agree. We need to create a culture where those concerns are taken seriously and investigated, no matter who raises them or who they're about.
This deep dive has been a wild ride, to say the least.
It has.
What started as a seemingly straightforward Hollywood story has turned into this tangled web of accusations, power struggles, and questions about the media's responsibility.
It's been quite a journey, hasn't it?
It has.
A really fascinating look into power dynamics manipulation and how important it is to think critically when we're faced with competing narratives.
And for you, the listener, I think the main takeaway here is to question everything.
Yeah.
Don't take anything at face value, especially when it comes to news and information.
Right.
Look for different viewpoints, consider the sources, and form your own opinions.
Well said. And with that, we've reached the end of our deep dive into this Hollywood legal drama.
We'll definitely be keeping an eye on this case as it develops, and we'll bring you any updates.